I didn't fly all the way to Miami in heels for this nonsense. Dead weight, he said, in front of a coat rack and a flickering light bulb. So I let his inbox drown in what he never understood: relationships. My name is Natalie Brooks, and after 12 years at Virion Group, I know exactly what makes our business tick. It's not algorithms or buzzwords or even our tech solutions. It's relationships. The kind built through years of trust, problem solving, and genuine care. The kind that make clients renew contracts even when competitors offer flashier packages at lower prices. The kind our new director, Bryce Linton, thought were outdated. The annual leadership retreat had always been a highlight of my calendar. 3 days at the Fontainebleau in Miami, where we'd discuss strategy, celebrate wins, and strengthen the bonds that made Virion successful. I'd packed my favorite navy blazer, 3 pairs of sensible yet stylish heels, and my laptop filled with client success stories I was scheduled to present on day 2. That presentation would never happen. Instead, I found myself staring at Bryce's perfectly groomed beard in the hotel's dimly lit coat room, where he'd asked me to chat for a minute after the opening dinner. The flickering bulb above cast strange shadows across his face, making his expression even more unreadable than usual. Look, Natalie, I've been reviewing everyone's metrics since I came on board, he began, adjusting his Apple Watch. Your client retention numbers look good on paper, but I'm not seeing innovation or growth potential. You're maintaining, not expanding. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. In 12 years, I'd increased my portfolio's value by 327%. I'd survived 3 recessions and a pandemic without losing a single major account. The relationship-based approach, he continued, making air quotes with his fingers. It's becoming dead weight in our industry. We need disruptive thinking, agile methodologies. The board brought me in to modernize how we operate. The board? Of course. 3 new members from venture capital backgrounds who'd never managed a client relationship in their lives. I'm restructuring the team starting next week, Bryce said, checking his watch again. I want you to hand off your major accounts to the new strike teams. We'll need comprehensive documentation on all client history. Of course. Strike teams. As if our clients were military targets to be conquered rather than partners to be nurtured. Nothing personal, he added, patting my shoulder awkwardly. It's just business evolution. You understand. I understood perfectly. I understood that Bryce had been hired 6 months ago from a flashy startup that had burned through $40 million in funding before imploding. I understood that he spoke entirely in buzzwords and had never once asked me about my approach or my client's specific needs. I understood that he viewed me, a 12-year veteran who had personally secured and maintained relationships worth over $50 million annually, as dead weight. Is there anything you'd like to add? He prompted when I remained silent. I smiled. No, Bryce, I think you've made yourself perfectly clear. He seemed disappointed by my calm response. Perhaps he'd expected tears or protest or desperate negotiation. Instead, he got a nod and a professional smile. Great, enjoy the rest of the retreat. There's paddleboarding tomorrow morning if you're interested. I watched him walk back toward the ballroom, where music and laughter spilled out whenever the door opened. Then I turned and walked in the opposite direction, toward my room. I had work to do. The thing about being at a company for 12 years is that you learn all its systems. Every digital tool, every process, every workaround. I knew things the IT department had forgotten. I knew backdoor access points created during system migrations and never closed. I knew exactly how information flowed through our organization. And I knew precisely how to redirect it. Back in my room, I opened my laptop and navigated to our email administration panel. As a senior team leader, I had permissions most employees didn't. Within 10 minutes, I had created a simple rule. All emails sent to me would be automatically forwarded to Bryce's inbox, with no notification to either of us. No trace, no alerts, just a quiet redirection of communication. I sent a quick email to my assistant back in Chicago. Taking a personal day tomorrow, not feeling well, please reschedule my calls. Then I set my out-of-office response. I'm currently unavailable. For urgent matters, please contact Bryce Linton at Bryce Linton, Viren Group. Com. The beautiful thing about a personal day when you're a senior employee is that no one can really question it. HR has policies about respecting personal time, and middle management gets nervous about potential liability if they push too hard. I closed my laptop, kicked off my heels, and ordered room service. Tomorrow would be interesting. I woke up early, despite having no reason to. 12 years of 6 a.m. alarms will do that to you. I dressed casually in jeans and a light sweater, packed an overnight bag, and checked out of the hotel before most of the retreat attendees had even made it to breakfast. Leaving us so soon, Ms. Brooks? The receptionist asked. Family emergency, I said with an apologetic smile. Please let the event coordinator know. By 9 a.m., I was on a flight back to Chicago. By noon, I was sitting across from Janelle Morgan at a quiet corner table in Sawada Coffee. Janelle had been trying to recruit me for 4 years. I was surprised to get your call, she said, stirring her matcha latte. Pleasantly surprised, of course. Let's just say my circumstances have changed, I replied. And what circumstances might those be? Virion has a new direction, one that doesn't value what I bring to the table. Janelle nodded slowly. Their loss. Though I have to say, your timing is interesting. I just had Polaris North reach out to me yesterday about a senior position. Clara Hastings specifically asked if you might be available. Clara had been my colleague at Virion before leaving to become COO at Polaris 2 years ago. We'd stayed in touch, occasionally meeting for lunch or drinks. Professional courtesy, I'd always told myself. Nothing more. Is that so? I sipped my coffee. What kind of position? SVP of Client Experience, reporting directly to Clara. Full autonomy over your team and strategy. They're looking to expand their enterprise division, and they need someone with established relationships. I smiled. How interesting. They're prepared to be very competitive with compensation, Janelle continued. And I imagine they'd be open to certain accommodations regarding client transitions. Of course they would. In our industry, clients often follow their strategists when they move between firms. Everyone knew this, though no one said it outright. It wasn't poaching if the clients made the choice themselves. I might be interested in having that conversation, I said. How's tomorrow? Clara's schedule just opened up unexpectedly. I thought about Bryce, sitting in Miami, about to discover what happens when you call someone with 12 years of client relationships dead weight. Tomorrow would be perfect. Meanwhile, in Miami, Bryce Linton was beginning to notice something strange. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with email notifications. At first, he assumed they were related to the retreat or his regular work, but as he scrolled through during a break in the morning session, he realized many were addressed to me. A renewal question from Westmark Financial, a project expansion inquiry from Terragen Solutions, a personal note from the CTO of Ironvale Systems about his daughter's college graduation gift. I'd send a handwritten card and a book on women in technology, knowing she was entering MIT in the fall. Confused but efficient, Bryce began responding to these emails himself. His responses were professional, concise, and entirely devoid of context or history. He had no idea that the Westmark renewal had been in discussion for 3 months, with specific concerns about API integration that I'd been carefully addressing. He didn't know that Terragen's CEO never made decisions without speaking to me directly first. And he certainly didn't know that Ironvale's CTO considered me a trusted advisor who had helped guide his company through a difficult digital transformation. By lunchtime, clients were responding with confusion. Is Natalie out today? When will Natalie be back to continue our conversation? I'd prefer to discuss this with Natalie, as she's familiar with our situation. Bryce, convinced of his own expertise and the rightness of his modern approach, replied to one such email with what he thought was reassuring confidence. Natalie's accounts are being transitioned to our specialized strike teams for more innovative solutions. I'll be your primary contact during this process. That email went to Sarah Chen, CFO of Ironvale Systems, who had worked with me for 7 years and trusted me implicitly with their $12 million annual contract. Her response was immediate. Are we being reassigned? This is the first we're hearing of any transition. Please have Natalie contact me directly to discuss. Back in Chicago, I was blissfully unaware of these specific exchanges. Though I had anticipated something like them, I spent the afternoon in my apartment, organizing my notes and preparing for my meeting with Clara. I reviewed each of my major clients, their histories, their pain points, their contract renewal dates. I knew which ones might follow me and which were too entrenched in Virion's systems to move easily. I also knew exactly how much revenue each represented, both currently and in potential growth. These weren't just accounts to me, they were relationships I'd nurtured for years. I understood their businesses, their goals, their challenges. I'd attended their holiday parties and sent gifts when their children graduated. I'd stayed up all night helping them through crisis situations and celebrated with them when they succeeded. This was what Bryce had dismissed as outdated. This was what he called dead weight. By the next morning, Bryce was in full panic mode. The flood of emails had continued overnight, with clients from different time zones now joining the chorus of confusion. He made a critical decision. He would centralize all client communication for clarity. He sent an email to the entire company. Effective immediately. All client communications should be routed through the appropriate strike team leaders. This will ensure consistent messaging and innovative solutions. Team assignments will be posted by end of day. This landed with all the grace of a piano falling from a 10th-story window. The internal Slack channels exploded in confusion. Account managers who had carefully maintained client relationships for years were suddenly told to step back. Support teams didn't know who to escalate issues to. And clients, those who had received Bryce's responses instead of mine, were using words like disappointed, concerning, and unprofessional in their replies. One email from Lucas Ramos, CEO of TerraGen Solutions, simply read, Natalie, or we freeze funding. I learned about this chaos from former colleagues who reached out privately, confused and concerned. What's happening? Are you leaving? Did you know about this restructuring? I gave non-committal responses. I'm taking some personal time. I'm sure the leadership team has a plan. Let's catch up next week. Meanwhile, I was sitting across from Clara Hastings at a rooftop cafe overlooking Millennium Park. The spring air was cool but pleasant, and Clara looked exactly as I remembered, sharp, focused, and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit with subtle red accents. It's good to see you, Natalie, she said after we'd ordered. Though I have to admit, I've been waiting for this meeting for 2 years. Oh? Since the day I left Virion, she clarified. I told our CEO then that if we could get you, we'd gain not just a strategist, but an entire client ecosystem. I smiled. Flattering, but I was happy at Virion. Until recently. Let me guess. Clara leaned forward. Bryce Linton. My eyebrows rose. You know him. I interviewed him before he went to Virion. 30 minutes in, I knew he was all style and no substance. All those buzzwords and no actual strategy. Well, he has a strategy now, I said. Dismantling everything I've built over 12 years and reassigning my clients to strike teams. Clara actually laughed. Strike teams? What are they striking against? Client loyalty. Apparently my relationship-based approach is dead weight, I said, making the same air quotes Bryce had used. Clara's amusement vanished. He said that to you, directly? I nodded. His loss, our gain. She straightened in her chair. SVP of Client Experience, direct report to me, complete autonomy over your strategy and team building, base compensation 20% above your current package, plus performance bonuses and equity. And client transitions? Clara smiled. We have a very comfortable budget for onboarding new enterprise clients. And our legal team has prepared some very interesting interpretations of non-solicitation clauses. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder labeled Likely Migrations. I've identified 7 clients who would likely follow me to a new position. Combined annual value of approximately $32 million, with growth potential to $45 million within 18 months. I've included renewal dates, key decision makers, and potential friction points for each. Clara took the folder with barely concealed delight. This is why I wanted you 2 years ago. You don't just build relationships, you build systems around them. When can I start? How does Monday sound? Back at Virion, things were unraveling with remarkable speed. Bryce, overwhelmed by the email flood and client pushback, made a crucial mistake. When Iron Veil Systems formally activated an exit clause in their contract, citing significant changes in account management structure, he panicked and sent an email to Virion's CEO, Marcus Way. Marcus, we have a situation with Iron Veil. They're threatening to leave, citing Natalie's absence. This is exactly the kind of transition resistance I warned about. These relationship-dependent accounts are too vulnerable to personnel changes. We need to accelerate the strike team implementation to demonstrate our value proposition beyond individual strategists. What Bryce failed to notice was that in his haste, he had accidentally CC'd both Sarah Chen at Iron Veil and, inexplicably, Clara Hastings at Polaris North, whose email he must have accessed while researching competitors. Within an hour, Virion's legal department was involved. By the end of the day, the board had been notified. The accidental email not only confirmed to Iron Veil that they were being treated as a problem rather than a valued partner, but it also revealed internal strategy to a direct competitor. I learned about this particular disaster from Clara, who forwarded me the email with a single comment. Christmas came early. I spent the weekend preparing for my new role. I updated my resume, organized my notes on industry trends, and carefully drafted emails to clients I plan to contact after my official start date, nothing that would violate non-solicitation agreements, just personal notes informing them of my move. On Sunday evening, my phone rang. It was Marcus Way, Virion's CEO. I let it go to voicemail. His message was exactly what I expected: concerned, slightly desperate, attempting to sound in control. Natalie, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding. Your value to Virion is immeasurable, and we have no intention of changing your client relationships. Please call me back as soon as possible. I didn't call back. Instead, I updated my LinkedIn profile. Natalie Brooks, SVP, Client Experience, Polaris North. No announcement post, no thrilled to share or excited for this new chapter. Just a simple update that everyone in my network would notice. And notice they did. By Monday morning, my inbox was flooded with congratulations, questions, and, most importantly, messages from clients. Are you really leaving Virion? Can we talk about our options? Would Polaris be able to handle our account structure? I answered each one professionally, being careful not to actively solicit their business, but making it clear that I would be happy to discuss their needs if they chose to explore alternatives. One client, Davidson Media Group's CEO, went so far as to comment publicly on my LinkedIn update. We follow people, not platforms. Looking forward to continuing our work together, wherever that may be. By Tuesday, 3 clients had formally notified Virion of their intent not to renew their contracts. By Wednesday, that number had grown to 5, representing over $25 million in annual revenue. Each cited changes in account management as their primary reason for leaving. On Thursday morning, I sat in my new office at Polaris North, reviewing onboarding documents for the first transitioning client. The office was bright and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. Clara had insisted I take one of the corner offices, usually reserved for executives with much more tenure. Building your empire, she asked, leaning against my doorframe with 2 cups of coffee in hand. Just making sure everything transitions smoothly, I replied, accepting the offered coffee with a smile. 5 clients in 3 days, Clara said, shaking her head in admiration. The team is calling you the architect behind your back, building relationships so solid they follow you across companies. Just doing my job. Well, your job has sent Virion into a full meltdown. Word is they fired Bryce yesterday. Mid-Zoom meeting with the board. Just cut his line and locked him out of the systems. I sipped my coffee. Unfortunate. Someone in our sales department joked that you burned Virion to the ground. Clara continued, watching me carefully. But I told them that wasn't accurate. It isn't, I agreed. I didn't burn anything down. I just stopped holding it up. Clara laughed. And that, Natalie Brooks, is exactly why I wanted you on our team. She raised her coffee cup in a toast. To relationships that matter. I clinked my cup against hers. To relationships that matter. Outside my window, the city hummed with activity. Boats moved along the river. People hurried along the walkways. Life continued its steady rhythm. 12 years at Virion had ended not with a dramatic confrontation or a tearful goodbye, but with a quiet reclamation of respect. Bryce had called me dead weight, forgetting that I was actually the load-bearing beam. And now, I was building something new, something stronger, something that understood the true value of relationships. I opened my laptop and began writing welcome emails to my transitioning clients. There was work to be done. The first 2 weeks at Polaris North passed in a whirlwind of meetings, onboarding sessions, and strategy planning. Clara gave me complete freedom to build my team and approach. And I was determined to create something special, a client experience division that would set new standards in our industry. By the end of the second week, all 7 of my likely migrations had officially signed with Polaris. 2 additional Virion clients, ones I hadn't even included in my projections, reached out independently to explore options. The industry had noticed, and the narrative was spreading. Follow Natalie Brooks if you want stability and understanding in your strategic partnerships. It was during this busy period that I received an unexpected visitor at my new office. Miss Brooks, there's someone here to see you, my assistant said through the intercom. A Mr. Wei from Virion Group. He doesn't have an appointment. Marcus Wei. The CEO himself had come in person. I considered refusing to see him. There was nothing he could say that would change anything now. But curiosity won out. Send him in, please. Marcus entered my office with the cautious step of someone approaching a wild animal. He looked terrible. His usually immaculate appearance was rumpled, with dark circles under his eyes and his tie slightly askew. Natalie, he began, remaining standing even when I gestured to a chair. You look well. Thank you, Marcus. What can I do for you? He sighed heavily. I think you know why I'm here. We've lost 7 major clients in 2 weeks, all following you to Polaris. 8, actually, I corrected him. Meridian Systems signed this morning. He winced. 8. Right. He finally sank into the chair across from my desk. Natalie, what happened? You were happy at Virion for 12 years. You were part of our leadership team, part of our family. I raised an eyebrow at the word family. Corporate families had a funny way of disowning members who became inconvenient. Bryce Linton happened, I said simply. Bryce is gone. We terminated his contract immediately when we understood what was happening. Too late. Marcus leaned forward. It doesn't have to be. We can fix this. Come back to Virion. Name your terms, title, compensation, team structure, anything you want. I studied him for a moment. Marcus had always been a good CEO in many ways. He understood the business, made smart acquisitions, and generally treated employees well. But he had also allowed the board to bring in Bryce without considering how it would affect the company culture or client relationships. Why did you hire him, Marcus? He looked away. The board wanted someone with startup experience, someone who could bring disruptive thinking to our enterprise strategy. And you didn't think to consult with your existing enterprise leaders, the ones who actually built those client relationships? It was a mistake, he admitted. One I'm trying to correct now. I shook my head. This isn't about Bryce anymore. It's about recognition and respect. For 12 years, I built relationships that generated over $50 million in annual revenue. I navigated recessions, pandemics, and industry shifts without losing a single major account. And then someone with no understanding of our business or clients called me dead weight and tried to dismantle everything I'd built. He said that to you? Marcus looked genuinely shocked. In Miami, right before announcing he was reassigning all my clients to strike teams. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. I had no idea. That's part of the problem, isn't it? You should have known. That conversation should never have been possible at Virion. Come back, he said again. Help me fix this. We can rebuild together. For a brief moment, I considered it. Virion had been my professional home for 12 years. I had friends there, memories, accomplishments I was proud of. But then I thought about standing in that dimly lit coat room, being dismissed as irrelevant by someone who had never bothered to understand my value. I can't do that, Marcus. I've made commitments here. My clients have made commitments. We're moving forward, not backward. He nodded slowly, resignation settling over his features. I understand. Can't blame me for trying. He stood up, straightening his jacket. For what it's worth, you were always one of our best. I should have protected you better. Thank you for saying that. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. How did you do it? The email forwarding. It still can't figure out how you managed it without leaving a trace. I smiled. After 12 years, you learn a few things about how systems really work. Indeed. He gave me a sad smile. Goodbye, Natalie. I wish you nothing but success. After he left, I sat quietly for a few minutes, processing the conversation. There was no satisfaction in seeing Marcus brought low. He had generally been a good leader caught in a bad situation. But there was satisfaction in knowing that my value had finally been recognized, even if it took my departure to make it clear. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Saw Marcus Way in the lobby. Do I need to come rescue you? I smiled and replied, all good, just closing a chapter. Drinks later to celebrate Meridian signing? Absolutely. I turned back to my computer, where a draft email to the Meridian Systems team waited for completion. There were welcome packages to prepare, integration plans to develop, relationships to nurture. The work continued, just as it always had. The only difference was that now, it continued in a place where its value was understood. 6 months later, Polaris North was featured in a major industry publication. The headline read, The Relationship Revolution: How Polaris North's Client-Centric Approach is Changing the Consulting Game. The article highlighted our dramatic growth in the enterprise sector, the innovative client experience division I had built, and the industry-leading retention rates we were achieving. Clara and I were both interviewed, though I insisted that the spotlight also include the team members who had helped make our success possible. The journalist asked me directly about the client migrations from Virion, clearly fishing for drama. I gave a diplomatic answer about clients making choices based on their strategic needs. Clara, less constrained by professional courtesy, was more direct. Our competitors are learning the hard way that treating client relationships as interchangeable or outdated is a fatal mistake in this business. The morning the article was published, my phone lit up with congratulatory messages. One in particular caught my attention, a text from Janelle Morgan, the recruiter who had connected me with Polaris. Have you seen the latest on Virion? She wrote, attaching a link to a financial news article. The headline was stark. Virion Group announces restructuring amid revenue decline, 15% workforce reduction expected. I clicked through and read the details. After losing nearly a third of their enterprise clients in 6 months, Virion was cutting costs dramatically. Marcus Way had stepped down as CEO, replaced by a turnaround specialist from outside the industry. The board had been partially reconstituted, with 2 of the venture capital members who had championed Bryce's hiring notably absent. Later that day, I received a LinkedIn message from my former assistant at Virion. Miss working with you. The place is unrecognizable now. So many good people leaving. I felt a twinge of regret for the collateral damage. Many talented, hard-working people at Virion had nothing to do with Bryce's decisions or the board's misguided strategy. They were now paying the price for leadership failures. That evening, Clara and I met for our now regular Friday dinner, where we discussed the week's developments and planned for the future. We had fallen into an easy partnership, with her operational expertise complementing my client-focused approach. Saw the Virion news, she said as we settled into our usual booth at a small Italian restaurant near the office. Thoughts? I considered the question carefully. Mixed. I don't celebrate people losing their jobs, but companies have to understand the true value of what they have before they discard it. Well said. She raised her wine glass. Though I can't pretend I'm not thrilled with how things worked out for us. The board is talking about making you a partner. You know, fastest track to partnership in company history. I blinked in surprise. Really? Don't act so shocked. You've brought in over 40 million in new business in 6 months. Your client experience framework is being implemented company-wide, and the team you've built is setting new standards for retention and growth. Of course they want to lock you in. I smiled and raised my own glass. To recognizing value. To recognizing value, she echoed. Later that night, as I walked home along the river, I thought about the journey of the past 6 months. I hadn't set out for revenge when I forwarded those emails to Bryce. I hadn't even planned to leave Virion, not really. All I had wanted was for my work, my approach, my understanding of our business to be respected. Instead, I had been dismissed as dead weight by someone who didn't understand the first thing about what made our company successful. So I had let him drown in the very relationships he thought were outdated. I had let him demonstrate, through his own actions, exactly why those relationships mattered. And when the company failed to recognize their mistake quickly enough, I had taken my talents elsewhere. Now I was thriving. My clients were happy. My team was innovative and energized, and the industry was taking notice. I stopped on the bridge over the Chicago River, watching the lights of the city reflect in the dark water below. Some might call what happened to Virion a tragedy. Others might call it justice. I preferred to think of it as a natural consequence. What happens when companies forget that business is ultimately about relationships between people? Bryce had called me dead weight, but I had been the load-bearing beam all along. And when I stepped away, the structure he thought was so solid had begun to crumble. I hadn't gotten revenge. I'd simply reclaimed my respect. And in doing so, I'd found something even better, a place where my value was recognized from the start. The night air was cool but energizing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new relationships to build. I was ready for all of it. I continued my walk home, leaving the bridge and the view of my old office building behind. Ahead lay the future I was building, one relationship at a time. 1 year to the day after that fateful conversation in a Miami hotel coat room. I stood at a podium in Polaris North's largest conference room. The company had gathered to celebrate a milestone, surpassing our 5-year growth target in just 12 months, largely due to the success of the enterprise division I now led as a full partner. When I joined Polaris North, I began looking out at the sea of faces, my team, company leadership, and even a few key clients who had been invited to the celebration. I brought with me a simple philosophy. In our business, relationships aren't just important, they're everything. I saw nods of agreement throughout the room. Technology changes, markets shift, strategies evolve, but the fundamental truth remains. People do business with people they trust. Building that trust takes time, attention, and genuine care. There are no shortcuts. From the corner of my eye, I saw Clara smiling. She had championed this philosophy throughout the organization, making it part of our core values. A year ago, someone told me this approach was dead weight in our industry. I continued. There were a few knowing chuckles. The story had become something of a legend in the company. Today, I'm proud to say that this dead weight has helped us add over 70 million in new revenue, achieve a client retention rate of 98%, and build a team that's the envy of our industry. Applause broke out, genuine and enthusiastic. But success isn't just about numbers, I said when the clapping subsided. It's about creating lasting value for our clients, for our company, and for each other. That's what we've built here and what we'll continue to build together. More applause, followed by a standing ovation that took me by surprise. As I stepped away from the podium, Clara approached with a small gift box. A token of appreciation, she said, handing it to me. From the entire leadership team. Inside was an elegant paperweight, crystal clear with a simple beam structure embedded within it. The inscription read, "Not dead weight, the load-bearing beam." I laughed, genuinely touched by the gesture. "You remember that line?" "How could I forget? It's the perfect metaphor for what you've built here." She lowered her voice. "Though I have some news you might find interesting." "Oh, I heard from a former board member at Virion. They're being acquired?" I raised my eyebrows. "By whom?" "TechCore Industries, at 60% of their valuation from 2 years ago." TechCore was a solid company, but known for aggressive post-acquisition restructuring. What remained of Virion would likely be absorbed and rebranded within months. "How the mighty fall," I murmured. "Indeed. And guess who's been named as TechCore's integration lead for the acquisition?" I waited, curious. "Bryce Linton." I nearly choked on my champagne. "You're kidding?" Apparently he landed there after leaving Virion, convinced them he knew all the inner workings of the company. The irony was almost too perfect. The man who had dismantled what he didn't understand would now be in charge of its final dissolution. "Well," I said after a moment, "I wish him better luck this time around." Clara studied me with a curious expression. "You really mean that, don't you?" I nodded. What happened with Virion wasn't about Bryce, not really. It was about recognizing value, or failing to. I've moved on. "To bigger and better things," she agreed, gesturing around the room where my team was celebrating. Later that evening, after the festivities had wound down, I found myself alone in my office, looking out at the Chicago skyline. My phone buzzed with a notification, a LinkedIn connection request from none other than Bryce Linton. I laughed out loud at the audacity. After a moment's consideration, I accepted the request. Almost immediately, a message followed. "Natalie, congratulations on your success at Polaris. I've been following your work with interest. Perhaps we could meet for coffee sometime. I'd value your insights on the Virion integration." I read the message twice, amazed at how little self-awareness some people possessed. After destroying what he didn't understand at Virion, he now wanted my help to pick through the remains. I considered ignoring the message entirely, or responding with a coldly professional rejection. Both would have been justified. Instead, I wrote, "Bryce, thank you for reaching out. I'm fully committed to my work at Polaris, but I'm happy to recommend some excellent books on relationship-based business strategy that might provide the insights you're looking for. After all, understanding the value of what you have before you try to change it is crucial to successful integration." I added links to 3 books that had shaped my own approach over the years, then hit send. His response came quickly. "I appreciate that. Natalie, no hard feelings about how things ended at Virion?" I smiled to myself. "None at all," I replied. "Every experience teaches us something valuable. I learned precisely where I belong and what I'm worth." I closed my laptop without waiting for his response. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the darkening sky,